Okay, so the first step is we need to have honest news sources. Second step is we need for our kids to be educated honestly. Right now, what they are in, what I call it, is monopolistic, monolithic schools. M&M schools. Monopolistic, monolithic schools. What we used to have 100 years ago, 200 years ago, we had the one-room schoolhouse. You have all the kids put in there together. The older kids have been there more years. They're reading better than the younger kids, and they're helping the younger kids go along. They're working on the math problems. Maybe the teacher separates them. You can have multiple, you don't need to have a big monolithic school where all the kids are at an exact age and things like this. Many things can start small, and if they are good, they will grow bigger. A company's like that. How many of the Silicon Valley companies started in somebody's garage, right? 2 or 3 or 5 years later, it becomes big and it grows, helps to change in an area of technology, helps to change the world. Churches can start small. You can start a church in a strip mall. You can start it in a home, right? And later they'll grow and become very big. Jerry Falwell was in the news because he recently passed away. His church started, I think, 16 people or something like that back in the 50s. He had thousands of people, and he helped to impact America, Reverend Jerry Falwell. Countries can start small. Towns or cities can start small, so why not schools? The current paradigm we have now is not always, sometimes it is effectively teaching kids, but it isn't always, and right now we don't have a choice. Who should have the choice of how your children are educated? People who don't give us a choice, or the parents? Why shouldn't the parent have some kind of a voucher system, right, where you have one child, one vote per month, right? Here's where this money goes to. Well, I'll go over the numbers a little bit later. You'll say, we can start a school. Okay, I'm going to go over the numbers later, but let me just hit my main points here. The one-room schoolhouses did work. They worked very well. They're very effective. Some of the big schools are working just great. But I'll tell you what, in many of the cities they aren't. And the problem is there's no choice. In Oakland, I used to live in, I told you this last time, I used to live in the conservative town of Berkeley, California. Right, did I tell you that? It seemed conservative to me. Okay, so, but in Oakland, they actually had to reabsorb it into California because they had too much corruption in the schools. So, okay, third step is, now you're going to love this one. Judicial review is unconstitutional. Okay, I'm going to discuss this. But, in fact, let me start that now. Okay. Now, to look at our country here, those guys will keep talking at us because they're very friendly. And we want to look at briefly the law of the land. What is the law of the land? And to do that, we're going to go back in time. We're going to go back to the Gettysburg Address, just briefly. Okay, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln. Here's how it starts out. 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth in this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. 407 years ago, 1 score is 20, 4 score is 80. 87 years earlier is not the U.S. Constitution. It's the Declaration of Independence. So Abraham Lincoln, from the 1860s, looked back to the founding of our republic, not to the Constitution. I'm just making this point, just so we're clear on this, but actually not to the Constitution, but to a prior document, the Declaration of Independence. Now, the Constitution is the law of the land. That's the supreme law of the land. But the founding of our republic, he dated at the Declaration of Independence. Declaration of Independence in Congress, July 4th, 1776. Unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind, requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. And it continues. Okay? Now, Constitution. I got some copies here of the beginning of it to pass out to you. And one more here. hold on just a moment. Okay, that'll work. We may have to share. Let me see if I can get this about equal on each side here. If you can pass these back, please. 2 or 3 per row. While you're passing that back, I'll read the preamble to the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. This is in 1787. And now, you have on your sheet here on one side, that's what it says, and then it says this, the beginning, okay? Article 1, Section 1. All legislative powers granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. And then it starts talking about each of them. Okay? How does that start? All legislative powers. Okay? All legislative, lawmaking powers. Now, on the other side of your sheet, it has the amendments to the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land, except where it has been amended. Can someone point out, the first one to find this, let me know which amendment it is to say the courts have the right to second guess what the legislature passes. Someone point that out. Which one is it? We got 27 of them. Who's the first one to find it? It's not there. When the courts, when a judge says unconstitutional, it is unconstitutional for the judge to say that. Okay? The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Except where it's been amended, here are the amendments. Unless it's been amended here, then all legislative powers are granted to the Congress, right? Isn't that what it says? That's what it says, right? Shall be invested in the Congress. We've been bamboozled, folks. Now, this is interesting, isn't it? Because even though we know this, and many of us are familiar with the Constitution, it's like as a people in the United States, it's like we've got a collective, like a fog we're in. Now, I want to mention one thing. I want to mention the Bible. And this is something I've never heard preached on, but I found it very interesting recently. I was looking at it because in 3 of the 4 Gospels, it tells briefly when they asked the disciples, asked, what will happen at the end times? What will happen when you come back again? And Jesus said, in all 3 of the Gospels where this is recorded, the very first statement, I've never heard it preached on as such, that this, and I would consider the first thing he says is probably something that's pretty important, if that's the first thing he mentioned, right? Because that's where he talks about you'll hear wars and rumors of wars and things like that, right? The first thing he says, Matthew 24:4, and Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. Same account, Mark 13, verse 5. And Jesus answering them began to say, take heed lest any man deceive you. Luke 21, verse 18. And he said, take heed that you be not deceived. Now, I think that's very important because any of us can be deceived. You can get some investment, or how many of you ever bought a used car before? Yeah, I have. How you doing there, son? Yeah, how you doing? I'm going to make you a deal that even I won't believe. Okay, so again, let's go back to this here.